So a few words about us, okay, before we'll deep dive into the budget parts discussion that you're all here for. So we are PractiTest, and we are a platform for people who understand that the QA matters. Okay, we are the most intelligent test management platform. We serve as a centralized hub, and we provide end-to-end orchestration, which is built for scale and designed for clarity. We have end-to-end modules all the way from requirements to the core of our platform, which is testing and execution, to issue modules and reporting issues. We are obviously compliant. We know that those times are, it's mandatory. We are compliant with SOC Type 2 and ISO 27000 and GDPR, and we are mentioned on both Gartner and Forrester reports frequently. Among our customers, you can find top players from pretty much any industry. And as I mentioned, we are the solution for organizations that understand that QA matters. And it is nice to see that QA matters not just in specific vertical, but across all domains and globally. And that matters. And you can probably identify some of the names here on the file. And as I mentioned about reports, I do invite you specifically to have a look about the Forrester TEI. For those of you who are not familiar, Forrester Consulting have conducted a total economic impact report that analyzed the results of investing or adopting PractiTest, and they have found that a customer were able to achieve 300% ROI, 2.4 million in revenue, and payback time of less than 6 months. So if you want to deep dive into that report, we invite you to read it thoroughly. That's quite interesting. And last but not least, we're gonna start for our session today. We'll start with a mini panel, and if Joanna will be able to join us, we'll increase it happily. So we're gonna talk about budget, okay? And we understand that budget is a representation of reality and what we care about. And in that aspect, I do want to introduce the people who are here. Actually, I'll let you introduce yourself, perhaps might be better than myself. Joel, would you like to start and say hi?
Sure. So my name is Joel. I have been in testing since I think 1997, more or less, doing about every single job in testing from regular tester to lead QA manager and VP quality and stuff like that. And today within practice, in addition to being in charge of quality, I'm also in charge of product, which means that I get to talk to many of our customers to understand how they're doing, what are they doing, and how basically they're implementing the product, but in general, how they're working. So that's about it.
Okay. Brent, would you like me to introduce you, or would you want to say hi yourself?
No, I can do it myself. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Wonderful.
Okay, good. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Brent Dilk. I've been in the QA industry for over 20 years. Back then, basically thrown into it. So back when I got into QA, it was because the company I was with, if somebody in a role had nothing to do, they would be asked to test. We now know it's not for everyone, but I started as a tester analyst, found out that I enjoyed it and I had a knack for it. And I made it a career and went into a management role about 12 years ago. And I'm currently working as director of software quality assurance at Lively in Winnipeg, Canada. And at Lively, we build generative AI automation tools for customer service centers, helping contact centers run more efficiently, empowering agents, and improving customer experience through smart, scalable AI. And when I'm not working, I spend my spare time with family and friends. I have 2 young grandchildren, and on my hobbies, which are fishing and woodworking. I guess the fishing thing is no surprise being from Canada. So that's me.
I would actually go for woodworking coming from Canada, but if you say fishing, I'm going to go for that.
Yeah.
Okay, in parallel, I just received an email from Joanna, which was a confusion, so she will join us shortly, hopefully. It does happen from time to time, but she will be joining us soon. And before, so I'll skip to that, and I will start with the first question, not talk about the state of testing, I'll put it back to you. And I'd like to ask the first question, okay? So we started with introduction, which is, the importance. You understand, both of you cumulatively, I think, have close to 50 years in testing, which is quite impressive. And
You make it sound bad, but okay.
no, I make it sound a valuable experience in that aspect.
Okay.
And I'd like to start with the first question and to ask, how do you balance investing in the new AI? Okay, look, we've passed full 6 minutes before we mentioned the word AI, and it's 2025. But I do want to talk about, how do you balance the need to invest in new AI and automation tools, and other trendy tools with maintenance of core QA operations. Okay, we know that there's always a balance and a pressure for both. How do you manage to combine those two together? Whoever would like to start or to comment.
Brent, do you want to go ahead?
Give me 1 second here.
No worries, then I can actually start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting, and again, I'm talking about both my experience in practice as well as stuff that I see, talking with literally hundreds of organizations worldwide. And the thing that we need to understand is that AI is being pushed very, very strongly by management. Okay, and many places, maybe the frustrating part is that management is pushing for AI for the sake of AI, not for the sake of value. So, and that's a problem, but that's not necessarily a problem. I think that that can also be an advantage, because what many organizations are doing, and we're trying to do it as well, is trying to align. Meaning AI doesn't need to be placed only on the shiny stuff. A lot of vendors are selling no code automation, and I'm going to read your requirement, and you don't need any testers. And I think that technology is not there yet, if it will ever be. On the other hand, a lot of people are using AI intelligently in order to make their testing more efficient, more effective, even if want to. We're always short on time. And so the places that I've seen, they actually align between AI and core. So in a sense, it's trying to play it smart. And whenever you've been literally asked to invest on AI and they give you kind of a quota, you need to have X tools or X part of your budget in AI, it doesn't mean that you need to do it on stuff that doesn't bring value. Just try to bring the value into that. So I think that that is like the simplest of answers, trying to align between value and AI and not go for the stuff with the sparkles and the shining lights.
Yeah, and Joel, I really agree with everything you said. There's this, I know we're going to talk about some of this later, but there's this pressure to adopt AI and that it's going to solve all our problems. It's going to solve some, and it's going to get better and better, and we're going to get better at using it. But right now, we are protecting our core first and applying some other techniques to free up some time for our QAs to, get some training and get prepared for doing more AI related work or automation work. So such as shift left and supporting the dev teams with their day-to-day activities, which will hopefully result in better quality from the development side, and then investing in AI at the edges in the beginning. So for example, using AI to create drafts of scripts or tests that us engineers can refine, and test maintenance automation. So as Joel had mentioned, I think geared towards increasing efficiency and effectiveness of QA, and also working with a tiered approach to AI investments. So not jumping right in, but doing some experimenting, followed by potentially a partial adoption, and then a core integration when we feel it's stable. So that's how we're looking at that particular question.
Great, thank you. It makes a lot of sense. Next would be perhaps a painful one, and that's about tight budgets that we do feel often are a case at this time of the year. What areas do you find to be non-negotiable, even in tight budgets, versus others that are more flexible, perhaps?
Me to start, Joel?
I'm going to let you start. I started the first one.
Okay. I think, because this has come up before as well. So I think maintain minimum standards. So for example, things like having QA sign off on a go, no go, along with product. Critical path regression coverage. And I think ensuring that even if others in other roles are doing some testing, which is relates to that shift left that I had mentioned for us anyway, making sure that the QAs are involved in the test planning and design. So whether there's a plan that's created, we'll review the test plan with the developer and provide any feedback. I think those are three main things that we won't back off from, non-negotiable.
And I like those. The one that I relate very much is the part about having those early discussions with development with the QA. And I think that it's kind of a no-brainer, because that is, in my mind, yeah, people talk about shift left going to requirements, but I think that the real shift left is, let's have that conversation between the developer and the tester while the developer is working on the feature, while, you know, the iron's still hot and we can bend it and run that. So that's a very, very important part of it. One of the parts that I think it's important, and we also basically stomp the ground on that, and I see some of our main customers doing that, is even when they're asked to switch their QA to be cheaper resources, either offshoring, outsourcing, stuff like that, even if you go into that, you maintain a core. You understand that AI testing is critical. And even if no all testing is critical, and even if you can find extremely good people abroad and remotely, you want to maintain a strong core in here. Close to your development, where they can have that conversation and be close to them.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, Noah?
Yep, sorry, technicalities.
But to make sure that at least part of your team is still within the core, because it's what allows you to be flexible. It's what allows you to respond quickly. And I think that people who don't give enough value to that, then are going to be paying afterwards. So that's one of the things that I think we need to stamp down and say, no, this is not negotiable at all.
Great. Sorry, I was trying to connect Joanna in parallel. Okay, Brent, I think this one, I'll start perhaps with you, if you may. And that's about tooling selection. I'll let Joel skip that one. There's so many tools out there. Okay, and do you allocate specific budget for tooling? Yes or no? And if so, how do you decide category-wise which tool is worth spending?
Okay. Yeah, we definitely do categorize, and in terms of what's worth funding, so category-wise would be, you know, the tools themselves and the training and the other aspects that go along with it, because we sometimes forget about that. We sometimes think, like, for budgeting, it's something that I'm buying, like a tool or a software or something like that, when really it's everything, right? It's people's time and everything else. So we set clear success metrics before buying any tool. So what do we want to achieve? We start with that. So for example, is it reduced test creation time, reduced regression runtime? Do we want to get our escape defects down? And then I would start with going onto some forums I'm on and researching the web, and we might engage in a company with a POC, because like many leaders, I'm getting multiple emails every day wanting me to buy their product. And of course, they're going to say their product's great. So it takes some investigation to figure out where to start. And sometimes you're going to pick one and it's not going to work out, and you're going to move on. And assess the impact areas where AI actually works today. Where do we have examples or data that shows that it's actually working? We should start there. And we also would want to make our selection based on high ROI areas. So test case generation and maintenance, maybe intelligent regression selection. And that's an interesting one, because we did engage with a company and did a POC on that, and it didn't quite work for us. Yet we invested that time. So I think when that happens, you have to, if you're failing, fail fast and pivot. Maybe writing automation code, automated UAI and API validation. These are just some things that I have noted here. And then I'm spending quite a bit of time with issues analysis and how we can adjust, and also issues prediction. So I think one of my initiatives going into 2026 is going to be to learn how we can better use that to help us analyze our data with our issues getting into prod, and how can we get some, maybe some methods or tools on helping to improve there, and just help us. It can be significant time to organize that data. And of course, I have to report to stakeholders and our product teams and so on. So hopefully that answers that one.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that, that's a good question about, first of all, about how do you make selection, and a good emphasis to make sure that you try before you buy, whenever possible. And also thank you for honestly, one of the things we wanted to do in this webinar is to share real life examples and not vendor point of view, is the fact that sometimes you're promised stuff that are not a match for your specific organization, and that's part of life, and you have to validate that you're getting into your full budget stuff that are actually useful for your own organization and are creating real value. With that, I'd like to welcome Joanna. I do apologize. We had, of course, some technical glitches. So we'll go backwards. And if you can say just an introduction of, say hi and say your background in QA, and then we'll hand over the next question to you.
Yeah. As expected, there's always a surprise and you have to move forward from it. So, hi, everybody. I'm Joanna Nagler. I am a QA manager at equussoftware. We are a leading provider in global mobility technology. I have been in software development for about 23 years, in quality for about 9.5, and as a QA manager at equussoftware for about 5.5 years. I can tell you a little bit about Equus if we want to, or we can just jump right in since we've got some questions here to go over.
Not to go, but to talk, for the audience, to get some of your wisdom, which they can shape for themselves. So I think what Brent just mentioned is a good point, that everyone can adjust to their own organization, and we're trying to make to share the information that others can adopt as well. So I'll ask the next question, and that's a challenging one. You'll get the first respondent, but Brent, be prepared. So the next one is about metrics and ROI, and I think with everyone being have some, and I think we all have some gray area already. So we know that historically QA was considered more of a cost center in many cases, and this is something we all definitely at PractiTest we strive to change. So I do want to ask for your wisdom about if you do use, and if so, which KPIs or metrics do you use to prove ROI investment to executives, to stakeholders, and so on. Okay, we're talking about budget. How do you justify the budget and potentially get more out of it, if possible?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, that QA tends to be thought of as a cost center, and I really hope to change that to be more of a value add, because I think that's super important. Obviously, some of those metrics that we want to focus on are going to be things that talk about cost savings, about risk reduction, and faster delivery. And that faster delivery part is sort of the value add, right? What else can we do? So extending beyond just looking at the quality of the software, but what processes can we improve, and how can we help align what our product does with what the clients need. But in terms of metrics, one of the ones that we started collecting a couple of years ago that I found pretty helpful is the change failure rate, which is it's basically a metric to determine how many bugs you're adding compared to how many features you're adding. So sometimes you can think, oh, we had this many bugs, and that feels like a lot. But if you say, but we've added, 7 times as much value, then that kind of shows that added value. The other nice thing about it being a DORA metric is that you can kind of compare yourself to the other industry, which helps because you kind of work in isolation and people are like, well, are we good enough? And you can kind of say, look, we're doing better or equal to what other software companies are doing as well. So I like that one a lot. It's been pretty well received by leadership. We also will track time to recovery, which is important if you think about trying to, if something happens, how quickly can you recover from it? That really
That's
builds that trust
I
with
I
the
really
client.
love that. I really love that one, because that one, again, speaking of realistically, that one understand that there will be bugs.
Yeah.
And there will be issues, and measuring the fact, and that's realistically speaking, that's understanding that we're not over promising stuff that's not going to happen. We know there's going to be escaping defects. We strive to reduce them, but we know they will happen. So measuring how fast do we bounce back is a really nice metric. I think that's
I think so
useful.
too. There's a couple others, but I'd love to hear, what others have to say as well. So, or what Brett has to say as well. So, I don't want to take all the time again, knowing that I was a little bit late.
That's all right. Brent, do you have matching metrics with some of the metrics that Joanna mentioned?
Yeah, let me start by saying, I think part of the reason a big reason I wanted to be part of this is because I knew I would learn something, right? And I think that's why we're all here. So, and what's more interesting is I was in a meeting literally yesterday where we were talking about issues we're having that relate directly to the KPIs or metrics that Joanna had just mentioned. So I'm going to definitely look more into those. I was focused on some other ones, but I can get through this fairly quick just by saying we have tracked so many metrics, especially since we've adopted PractiTest, which made it easier. But a bunch of the standard ones, right? Like how many tests are being executed and defect detection efficiency. How many are we catching before release? Leakage, how many are getting into production? If there are issues getting in, we want to minimize the severity defect of those getting in. We want to have faster release cycles, and on and on and on. And what I've learned is the executives sift through most of them. They really want to know if we're preventing defects from getting into production, right? That's the biggest thing, because those will have the biggest customer impact. And I was trying to, and looking at some metrics and being asked to sort of, we want to see trends and we want to see things going down, but I think I need to quantify that better towards what Joanna said. There's different aspects to it, right? Not all is equal. You can have more work or less work, etc. So thanks for those, Joanna. I'm gonna look into those more and see if that's something that we could implement here as well. And then
Sure.
QA hours saved through automation and AI. They're always interested in that kind of stuff. But
True. Before I'll hand over to Joel, I will address that I think there is a separation between action KPI, measuring the internal performance of the department, which is important from internal point of view, from efficiency of managing a department and managing a team, versus the ones that are more interested to the higher ups and to the executive, which are more directly correlated to business value. Okay, as you mentioned, the ones that are related to customers, because in a way, from customer point of view, customers don't care if you're doing automation QA or manual QA or you're outsourcing. That's an internal metric of efficiency. It is important for the EBITDA report, but not so much for the customer point of view. And the ones that are, if we can correlate our work to customer point of view and to business success, that's more of speaking the business language that executives do relate to. One last sentence for me before I hand over to you. I will share in the follow-up email for those of you who are watching online and not just. We had last year a session, an event called QA Takes the Lead, and we had a session by Siva Koparniku from Partsos, which she talked about speaking the language of management. And that's also something that might be useful for somebody to track. That's a 25-minute session, but also worth listening to about exactly speaking that, getting higher management attention for QA budget. Joel, do you want to address? Do you agree or disagree?
I agree, but I think that one of the things that we need to understand is that for management, quite a lot of time, as much as they want to have hard metrics, like time saves and stuff like that, I think that there's also the softer metrics. And one of the things that I've seen used effectively, we do it internally, and I've seen other customers do it, is actually using NPS. Okay, and most of us have our product team is going to be around the NPS, Net Promoter Score. And the NPS by itself, it's a nice metric, but it's a very, very global metric. It can measure anything from product to, I don't know, uptime and colors in the application. But what we try to look up is when people report the NPS, they usually report, some of them will also are comments. And what we're trying to measure is comments around instability, comments about product being buggy. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that quarter over quarter, depends on how you measure. We measure NPS quarter over quarter. You're not going above a threshold, or you're focusing on those areas. And for example, you still have a very big issue on stability and the UI of the product for a while. And we made an effort to say, hey, we want those comments to go down. And that was a metric. It's a soft metric, but it still was a reliable one. And by the way, it was one that management could really get to, because they would see the comments by customers and they would say, oh, yeah, it's going down, and we're happy with that. So that's a very important one, in addition to all the other ones that you were saying. But yeah.
Okay, good. My next question will be about the future a little bit. And, you know, asking people to predict the future is a challenge, but let's talk about it in budget perspective, and let's limit to the near future, okay? If you are to project the next 3 to 5 years, okay, relatively close future, what do you expect QA budgeting to evolve? What changes, or perhaps, and you know what, let me broaden that question. If you can talk about the building blocks of your budget today, obviously not numbers, but the elements that include it. And if you expect, what do you expect will be changing? We'll see, what changes do we expect to see in the near future in that aspect?
Who do you want to answer?
Yeah. I was gonna say, happy to go first, or
I'll let you go first, because you're catching up from the missing points. So I'll let you go first, Brent, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, so if I think about just over, and I think I missed the first question now that I could have jumped in, but if I think about where we might be spending money in 3 to 5 years, I really think we're not going to see a lot of headcount increase. We're not going to be adding a lot of people. So it's going to be really focused on what we can do with the tools that we have. So how can we, how can we use AI to help? Like a challenge for us is around good data creation and having something that mimics what our clients are doing. And so leaning on AI to help us with some of that types of things where we can spend more time using sort of that QA instinct that I like very much that QAs have, and then spending money on tools or on environments or to help assist to do more with less, basically, which is really what I think we're going to end up doing. And I'm not sure how much you guys have talked about AI before I joined, or even tools like that in general. I think some of it we need to just pay attention to what we already have in house. So I don't know that we're going to spend a lot of money on that. I don't actually see us spending tons more on quality, but I think what we might end up doing is doing things like spending money on upskilling so that people understand how to use the tools that we already have, and how they can kind of get better at what they're doing, which can add to that QA instinct. All the QAs on our team are very smart individuals that just sort of sense what they need to be looking at, but let's give them the tools to be able to do that a little bit better, and the skills to be able to do that a little bit better, and embrace what's coming for us. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of where I think our budget's going to go. Less on money, a lot more on just sort of high impact tools and processes.
Yes, thank you. Brent, do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I agree. More spending on tooling and automation, less on repetitive manual effort, which could translate to, it could be the same amount of people, but just doing more, and we are growing. So I think that's how I would look at that. And I also think that there will be greater flexibility with some of the uncertainties and the unknown, we could have something pop up at any time that changes things dramatically. And we have to work with our accounting departments and our executives to understand that. I know my company does do this, right? Of course, most companies would have budget for unknowns. But I think we'll have more flexibility, even in terms of, in the past, you might hear, well, I want to get this tool, but you're told, well, you used up your budget, you know, and we don't have anything. But I think there'll be a little more flexibility around, well, I found this tool, it's new, I really think this can have some really great ROI and improve our efficiency, whatever. I think they'll be more likely to listen. And of course, we'll have to supply some ROI details, but yeah, that's how I think things are going to change in the coming years.
Joel, before your comment, I'll just say yes, but have a look. This is strongly related to your ability to tie QA spending into ROI language. I think that if you are able, once you are able to say, okay, there is this, because if you come and say, I want to buy this tool, it should help me do more automation, then probably the level of openness would be lower. Then you can say, yes, there is this new tool, it's promising, it can help me be more efficient, release better, shorten our time to market. Then when we speak the language, that increases our chances of budgeting, of flexibility, of additional budget, of getting things approved.
Absolutely. Agree.
Joel, what's your intake?
I'm gonna go, and you're talking about the future, so I'm gonna talk about something that I believe, and again, I'm talking to some of our customers, and that's what they're telling us, is that it depends on how you're going to be framing your work. No one has told me that they're increasing the percentage or their QA budget, even when development teams grow. QA is usually lagging behind. Proportionally speaking, we get less budget allocation than development increasing, then we'll get less budget allocation. But there are a couple of things that a lot of people are telling me about, and one of them is smart budget allocation. Usually QA doesn't do it, and I think that is something we need to start doing, in the sense that we need to make sure that we own our budget, and then we can make shifts between our budget, within our budget. And one of them might be workforce. So I said earlier that I believe that we need to have a core part of the team close to our development, not offshore, not outsourced, internal. Having said that, I believe that it has to be a blend. So if you can, and again, I'm not going to be popular here, sorry for that, but if you can actually outsource part of your team and have cheaper resources, don't fire anyone, but people, people are moving out. So if you can take a cheaper resource that costs 60%, then you get 40% on the buck in there. And then you can use it in other areas, not necessarily getting new hires, because your headcount is going to be limited, but then you can use that budget in order to get more tools and more training and stuff like that. That's one thing. The other thing that I think it's brilliant, and that actually is around shifting right. And I think that a lot of people think they're shifting right, but not all of us are, at least not enough. Most of the tools that we're working on are SaaS related, are hosted systems. Having said that, we don't shift enough into the production environments. We don't measure quality in production. We don't monitor enough. We don't work with logs enough and stuff like that. So if we're able to start taking chunks of that responsibility, then that responsibility comes with a little bit of budget, and then we can actually leverage that. So I think that it's about expanding our realms. And if we have a larger realm, we have a bigger budget, and we have more flexibility and wiggle room within that budget to make optimizations. So those are the two things that I think are important. And the first one is, if you own your budget and not only your headcount, how can you shift it around a little bit more? And secondly, expand your realm or your reach, and automatically you should get a bigger budget. And then again, the bigger your the allocated budget, the more optimizations you can do internally with that. But again, my 2 cents.
Can I add something to this?
Yes, please.
Joel, that was really interesting, actually. And I like that idea. And especially around kind of when you were talking about, like, it was pretty much like save somewhere so you can spend somewhere else, sort of, right? So if you think about possibly hiring in a lower, like in some place where they don't charge, where you don't have to pay as much, then you can use that money somewhere else. And you have to be able to own your own budget to do that. I agree. I think another thing that we can think about, even without having to do something like that, is, and it's sort of the opposite of shift right a little bit in the sense that we can kind of push testing responsibility further up along the line as well. When we think about, like, if we're really taking advantage of what the QA, as I mentioned before, that sort of QA instinct, and they're so good at kind of finding things quickly, and they're not having to find broken happy path test cases or having to get confirmation or clarification about acceptance criteria. If we can push some of that onus up, then they actually have more time to do other things as well, and then sort of add value to the company. So even just a sort of adjusting who's responsible for quality could even help with that. Same idea. I think it's similar to what you were saying, Joel, and I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, it's on the other side of the blanket, you know. We have a limited blanket. It depends on how you want to shift it. But for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. I do have an additional question continuing that line, and that's a simple one, I hope. What's one thing you'll stop spending on 2026? Okay, because we all agreed that we're not anticipating additional budgets, okay, and we're not expecting additional headcount. So you can say hiring, but I'm not allowed to say the word hiring. So still, if you have something, if there's anything you're not going to spend new money on.
I have one.
Yes, please.
So we're looking at, I think that in the last while, especially the last few years, some of the open source tools have really improved. And I think that we're spending time assessing some of the open source tools, if they will meet our needs rather than paying for something, and then we can allocate those funds elsewhere. So that's what we're planning on doing.
Nice.
A good suggestion. Along those lines, it's about sort of saving money to spend it somewhere else. It's been bugging me. We have some Azure VMs that we pay by the hour. I would love to see us move to something that's a little bit more permanent because it costs a lot less money. That's kind of a big move because we have to sort of readjust everything that we're doing. So I don't know if we'll have time, but I'd love to kind of push that forward, see if there's some money we can save with Azure DevOps and Azure environments and what we're spending there, and get the same thing for a little bit less, where we don't where we make a little bit more commitment to using the services longer. That's what I'm hoping for.
Nice. Joel, do you want to comment that, or you can skip?
I think that if I look into, again, we're not going to eliminate the budget, but it goes back to something that Joanna was saying. We're being very picky and choosy on what we defined as wasted time. That might be, I don't know, reporting bugs that are not needed, or rerunning test cases that shouldn't be run because the feature was not ready to test it. A lot of stuff that we can improve. I think that's important. We need to understand that we're going to be lucky if the budget stays the same. So doing more with less, that means working more efficiently. So how can we actually improve our efficiency by literally attacking those places that people don't want to do? People feel worthless, and to be sincere, a lot of time is just about standing our ground, meaning coming to developers and saying, no, the feature hasn't met the criteria. Continue testing it on your own until you send it to us. If you don't show me that you run your initial test cases that we define for you, I don't want to see it. Instead of being the nice guys and trying to play along. So I think that's one of the things that we need to stand our grounds a little bit more, and maybe gain some additional hours a week. So that's my point.
Nice. And on the other side of that, and that would be my last question for today, is what's one investment in QA that paid off far more than expected? Okay, so far we were all talking about tight budgets and challenges and how we're going to do more with less. But if you can share something that proved, well, even not just more than expected, but one spending or investment that you found to be useful, or you think will be useful, you expect to be very useful. That's a tricky one.
No, I can start with that. And again, we've seen it. We did something about 4 months ago, technical training. We actually took our QA team and we showed them how to work with production logs and how to analyze all of that information that usually we used to rely a lot on development. And developers were happy about it, testers were happy about it, and we're reducing a lot of ping pong. Testers feel more technical, and so they're happy with that. So it's not simple training. Again, I don't have anything about certifications, but I don't really believe in ISTQB and stuff like that. But it's more around technical stuff. So technical training, I think that it paid off way more than what I expected.
That is an outstanding idea. I did not have that on my radar, but I love it because I would love to see the QAs, and they have some interest too to get more technical. So maybe I'm going to try it out and see if it pays off. The thing that immediately came to mind, which is actually similar to what I said about stopping spending money on, is a while back we actually invested in getting each of the teams more environments for testing, which actually increased the cost because that was an hourly based thing. But I think that actually paid off more than I thought. I thought nobody needs more than one environment, and actually it's been really, really helpful. So having those multiple environments has actually been really nice. We just need to figure out how to pay less for them.
That's a great point, John. I think, and also in perception to the fact that sometimes having, this is a great example to spending that you don't expect to yield value, and sometimes have the fact that you have it and you're not wasting time on, you can do it parallel, you can prepare stuff while something is already running. That's a lot of time saving and a lot of potential money saving in that aspect that you don't anticipate upfront.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might not realize, right? Compared to all the streaming services I have until I look at my statement and see what I'm actually spending on the ones that I'm not actually watching. So I think that's a good way to address that. And I think relating to what Joel said, yeah, I think there's this perception with some people that QAs are only capable of certain things, even though we are quite technical. So we look for opportunities to get involved wherever we can on some other things that might be a little more technical or back end, and just, show us how things are done. We can help out and assist when we are able. And I do have to say that we were really struggling with test management in the past, and I think that PractiTest has been a big payoff for us.
I didn't make him say that. I do want to mention.
No, and with some changes around here, I've been working with the PractiTest people to figure out how best to move forward, because we're changing slightly how we're using it, but metrics are big here, and it's a big focus heading into our strategy in 2026. And I need those because doing that stuff manually is very painful. Plus, it takes time to set up, but once it's up and running, everything is automated, and you might have to make the odd tweak. And if someone asks for more data, it's quick to get it done than doing it manually. So that's my perspective there.
That's very nice. And again, this is not a paid promotion. I do want to add to what you mentioned. I think that in general, upskilling, it was also mentioned earlier, John, you mentioned that. I think that upskilling is a good point with all the changes that we're seeing, and we have started with AI, and I'm going to finish with AI. And I hope you agree. Feel free to disagree if you like, that there will be a need for some upskilling for almost all people with the changes that are coming in. And that's an investment that's expected to return itself quite heavily, because there is a lot of technology change, a lot of AI is changing. So far, stuff that we are aware of, but it can add additional capabilities for people, and making sure that all of our team with different perspective and different years of experience are adapt to the new and current reality. That's probably a good investment to make sure that they're up to date technically on technical level and beyond, that are trained, that are savvy to do that. So that's my perspective about that. With that being said, let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to say. I think those were my core questions. Anything else that you'd like to comment before we'll wrap and thank you all? No. no. So with that, I really do appreciate the time, both Brent, both Joanna. We were supposed to have Jonathan, but he had an annex. By the way, there are some cases where people are still growing their teams. So we had some unprecedented interviews that could not be moved. So he wasn't here with us eventually, but we will have him on a different session. I do want to thank you all for taking the time. I think it was a very interesting discussion. I hope you learned something out of it and that our audience will learn as well. For those of you watching us on demand, and I'm going to thank you and wish you a good rest of the day.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
very much,
much.
everybody.
Thank
Great
you.
chatting with you.
Have
Bye
a
for
great
now.
day.